We're moving on to fun. We're moving on to fun stuff early, and by that I mean we are moving on to where is that? There was a new Wisecrack video that came out. Like we're gonna do political reacts,
love the spirit of
but
justice.
fun politics
You love
reacts,
your father, the devil.
which would mean the latest Parks and Rec is democracy
Thanks, brother.
doomed.
This video is brought to you by Vincero.
And then I'm gonna get to Dark Souls early too. Oh boy, I'll get to see this clipped on YouTube in a day or two. Yeah, not by me, by the way.
What's up, Wisecrack? Michael here. Today I want to talk about something we've all been watching, a story that explores America's founding principles by adding a hefty dose of hip-hop, Parks and Recreation.
What does he mean, adding a hefty dose of hip-hop?
You likely think of Parks and Rec as a show about small-town government, woodsman libertarianism, or the dangers of doing business with the Saperstein family.
The worst. She's the worst.
But what if it's an accidental masterclass in the struggles of founding a new country? Now, to say Parks and Rec is a show about America's founding might sound like a stretch. But remember, the co-creator Mike Schur is the same guy that made an entire sitcom about philosophy.
It's like who died and left Aristotle in charge of ethics?
Plato.
Okay, even if Mike Schur wasn't reading the notebooks of Thomas Jefferson, his comedic musings on life in Pawnee may help us learn more about a very basic problem for people trying to start a country from scratch. That is, how do you stop it from collapsing in on itself? Welcome to this Wisecrack edition on the political philosophy of Parks and Recreation. And spoilers ahead for the show and Hamilton. But before we get into it...
Wait a minute, dude. Wait a minute. Spoilers. Spoiler alert for Hamilton's pretty funny. Hatchback now. Pablo Lavier. It might be my display port. No, it's just... don't worry about it. No, I was just talking to my chat. What is it? Oh, are those my DisplayPort cables? Yes, thank God. You just like put them over here somewhere. I want to comment on the... Okay, whatever.
I want to give a shout out to this week's sponsor, Vincero. Vincero watches are fractured.
Vincero. I'm skipping this because
their entire classes read to
I'm skipping this because it's Italian.
order. Now, back to the show. Parks and Rec follows the inner workings of Pawnee, Indiana's Parks Department, headed by Ron Swanson and his overeager deputy Leslie Knope. Leslie has an almost childlike admiration for American-style democracy, and believes that with good-natured leaders, the government has the ability to make our world a better place.
Wrong.
However, she is surrounded by people who are at best apathetic and at worst downright hostile to her grand plans.
I don't want this Parks Department to build any parks because I don't believe in government.
Leslie is thwarted at every step as she tries to build a park where an empty pit once stood, take on Big Sugar, or stop people from drinking from water fountains like assholes.
Yeah, so the idea is to make a fountain that he can't do that to.
Before he was famous for being a deft Broadway lyricist, Hamilton, along with James Madison and John Jay, wrote a series of articles meant to sway public opinion towards the creation of a unified nation of states through the Constitution and a strong national government. You know, the United States of America. These articles, referred to as the Federalist Papers, were responding to existing criticisms of the proposed union and preempted any yet to come. And while the stakes of forming a union out of 13 individual states and throwing a Pawnee unity concert might not be quite the same, these early debates about American government can help us better understand what's really going on in Parks and Rec. So let's start with problem one, the danger of factions. Whether you're a local parks department or the head of a national government, there's one thing you've got to watch out for. Different groups of people, all with very specific interests, all yelling at each other in a way that devolves into chaos.
No, you promised!
You promised? That's not fair.
Wait, it's not a question of fairness, it's separation.
Go back to Russia, Commie.
Hey, you go back to Russia! And you go back to wherever you came from!
If you're a student of Pawnee's town hall meetings, you might have noticed a theme. No matter what level...
By the way, for as like idealistic as Parks and Rec was, and for as lipshit as it was, the irony was that those town hall meetings are actually fucking like a documentary. I know that it's scripted, but they might as well have just played real town hall meetings. If you've ever watched real town hall meetings, like the true political nerd that we are here, it is nearly identical. As a matter of fact, I would go so far as to say the only reason why it's not realistic is because it's more tame and less crazy in Parks and Recreation.
level-headed plan Leslie unveils, there is some person or group who feels like their rights as an American have been trampled upon.
I mean, what's next? Income?
Sir, you don't pay your income tax?
Whether or not I pay income tax is none of the government's business.
Try to make Pawnee healthier, and this guy is mad he has to go out of his way to the nearest paunch burger.
Now, if I want to start my day off with a triple-decker pancake breakfast pizza, I got to go to the one that's 10 minutes away, and that makes me 20 minutes late to work every day. I work at home.
Have you ever considered not eating that for breakfast?
I'll never consider that.
During these meetings and throughout
Literally
the
the
show,
same.
Leslie and the Parks Department are met with an onslaught of hyper-specific and constantly annoyed citizens and interest groups who are never satisfied with anything.
There is a disturbing lack of benches in Ramsey Park.
These factions, in turn, trample on the rights of others, like when seniors can't learn how to not catch chlamydia because it offends the Society for Family Stability Foundation.
Yeah, this is a pretty good show. This is why I like the show a lot. It's not as good as Veep. It's not as nihilistic as Veep was, but it was pretty close to it.
If we allow this filth to be taught to our seniors, the next thing you know, it'll be in our high schools, then our kindergartens, and before you know it, we have babies in thong underwear. Is that what you want?
Yes, that's what I want.
Believe it or not, it was exactly this kind of chaos that James Madison was trying to avoid by creating a federal republic to unify the states. Sure, he might not have meant bench people, but he was acutely aware of how, say, one religious group could tyrannically impose their will on others. Madison, in Federalist Number 10, defines a faction as a number of citizens, whether amounting to a majority or a minority of the whole, who are united and actuated by some common impulse of passion or of interest, adverse to the rights of other citizens or to the permanent and aggregate interest of the community. While Leslie's chipper attitude tries to solve the problem of factions with inclusivity,
So, what I hear when I'm being yelled at is people caring loudly at me.
Madison argues that the solution to factions is to either destroy their cause or limit their effects. And while removing the causes for the factions sounds convenient, Madison points out that the only ways you could do this would be by destroying the liberty that lets factions exist in the first place, or more creepily, giving every citizen the same opinions, the same passions, and the same interests. In other words, if Leslie simply indoctrinated everyone into her binder cult, there would be no pesky Jeremy Jams trying to put a paunch burger on her beloved park.
I want to sell this lot to Paunch Burger. Here's why. We make money, they make money. They make burgers, we eat burgers.
Since removing the causes of factions isn't really an option, how does one limit their effects? For Madison, factions are especially...
It's so great because it's like a technocratic neoliberal with a kind heart who genuinely does want a technocratic liberal, not neoliberal, a technocratic liberal with a kind heart who genuinely wants what's best for the public, but is so fucking naive, going up against like virtually every monster in local government, leading all the way up to statewide government. Isn't Rashida a chud too? I mean, she's married to a really awesome dude, but she is a swerve. She hates sex workers, I think.
Especially bad in smaller republics. Local politics makes it easier for super rich neighborhood weirdos like the Newports to impose their will on an entire area. If you go bigger, Madison thought, the competing factions might balance each other out a bit. But then again, he didn't really foresee the rise of the internet or multinational corporations, but that's a video for a different day. Parks and Rec, on the other hand, has a novel solution to a certain kind of factionalism in the time capsule episode. In this episode, a man with a creepy Twilight obsession wants to get the book put in the town's time.
Okay, so I'll tell you this much. It is... West Wing is perfectly analogous for the mentality that we had during the Bill Clinton and even George W. Bush era of politics, where there was a level of naivete, a widespread naivete about like how politics is supposed to function, and like how, you know, these are competing factions that go against one another, and then ultimately the side with the best argument and the best facts wins. Which wasn't true even at that time, but that's like the idealist liberal point of view. And I think Parks and Rec is a perfect analogy for the Obama administration and the Obama era, where the ideology, where the ideological boundaries are perfectly limited between well-intentioned progressive liberals, neoliberal, like well-intentioned progressive technocratic liberals, neoliberals who want to make money off their, you know, local government by privatizing certain factions, and also right-wingers, and then finally libertarian right-wingers who hate the government. So it's like it captures the essence of that era very well.
Time capsule to impress his daughter.
Which is why, have you spoken to Ezra? Yes, I have met and have spoken to him. He's a cool dude. We're not like good friends or anything, but
you don't love the spirit of justice. You love your father.
Are you familiar with Power Broker / Robert Moses?
With
No.
the Power Broker / Robert Moses?
The town hall meetings, predictably, spiral out of control as groups and individuals with misaligned interests all fight to have the Bible, weird paintings, and dead people's ashes included in the project. We can get a little Madison in here.
Sure.
Since it would be a huge overstep to try to eliminate the source of people's feuding about whether Twilight is demonic propaganda or an important cultural touchstone, the role of government is to develop mechanisms for controlling the fallout. One of Madison's solutions was to have a space for the rabble to express their grievances, while making sure the system kept their shenanigans
I love
contained.
the thick of it too.
In this light,
Same
we might
creator of
consider the
Veep.
town hall meetings as an important pressure valve.
Someone asked where the socialists are here.
Contained. In this light, we might consider the town hall.
One episode dedicated to Venezuela. If you guys remember, the sister town in Venezuela.
Meetings as an important pressure valve for public sentiments.
What are you, some kind of moron? Why don't you have hand dryers in the park bathrooms? They're so much more sanitary than paper towels.
Letting the people air their grievances might just keep the weirdos from lining up outside City Hall with muskets. And weirdly, this is a huge mechanism of the Constitution's design.
That episode didn't age well? No, it did not.
Letting all the chaos and anger of a democracy be expressed without giving into the actual unfiltered will of the people. There's two ways we can look at this. On one hand, having just survived a revolutionary war motivated by a factional dispute between England and the colonies, the founders understood the importance of controlling angry minorities who would inevitably be at odds with government rule. On the other hand, they were equally worried about the poor masses, who were larger in numbers than the landowning classes, rising up and taking power from their buddies who own both land and people. And that's not even getting into how afraid they were of slave revolts, again, a topic for another time. Besides revolts of the poors or slaves, or both allied together, Madison and his fellow Federalists had another problem. How do we convince the skeptical states to join our new union? And while Pawnee isn't even a state, we can see some of the same exact problems at play in Indiana. Eagleton, Pawnee's ritzy neighbor, seceded from Pawnee long ago, disgusted by the filth of the undesirable pores of their neighborhood. That all changes, however, when they go bankrupt. While Eagleton isn't pushing for a compromise over slavery, thank God, they are, like many of the southern states, hesitant to give up their freedoms and rejoin the town of Pawnee. Built over a hot spring with a microclimate all its own, it's an example of how hard it can be to get different cities or states to join together for the greater good. Eagleton is richer, cleaner. The town hall meetings are exquisite.
Look how pretty the people are.
Why would they ever want Pawneeans to come ruining their nice parks? Eagleton is, in this sense, like an anti-federalist state. Unlike an Eagletonian, Leslie Knope.
The real difference is that these safe haven cities exist, but they don't necessarily exist in red states, or a better distinction is not made between red states and blue states, but rather like wealthy areas within red and blue states.
You don't love the spirit of justice. You love your father, the devil.
These sorts of safe havens, one, as a consequence of redlining or numerous other measures to create these like wealthy communities, still very much play a significant role.
You love your father, the devil.
So I would go so far as to say that the Parks and Rec designation is better than the way that this person is trying to describe it.
Sees the value in Pawnee being part of something greater than itself, even when Eagleton is broke and full of condescending assholes.
I live in Eagleton, and frankly, I don't like the idea of living in Pawnee. They're a little, what's the word? Have no money.
And believe it or not, Eagleton's bankruptcy is actually a pretty great stand-in for one specific hesitancy in joining into a union of states: debt. If you've seen Hamilton, you'll remember the definitely historically accurate rap battle between Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton, in which they used their lyrical prowess to debate the question of whether debts and wealth should be shared through the federal government, or if a state being broke was their own dumb problem to worry about.
Oh, if the shoe fits, wear it. If New York's in debt, why should Virginia bear it? Our debts are paid, I'm afraid. Don't tax the South, cause we got it made in the shade.
This was an important question in the wake of the Revolutionary War, as both the federal government and the states were in massive debt to the tune of $54 and $25 million, respectively. With paper money as useless as stock in Entertainment 720 and no country wanting to loan money to deadbeat America, Hamilton's big idea was to absorb all this debt at the federal level and establish a national bank. For heavily indebted states, this was awesome. But for states like Maryland, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Virginia who already paid their debts, it meant getting taxed to pay off the debt of your broke-ass neighbors. Somewhat like the debt-ridden states, Eagleton's only way to survive their crushing debt is to be absorbed into Pawnee, forming a new economic union of sorts. Pawnee, since they haven't repeatedly failed to pay back their debtors, ostensibly can borrow more money to build more parks and schools, especially after the keen fiscal management of Ben Wyatt. In the case of the Constitution, the idea was that, say, France would be less willing to lend money to, say, New Jersey, and more willing to trust their cash with a larger and fiscally savvy federal government. So here, Parks and Rec falls on the side of New York-based hip-hop artist Alexander Hamilton, who said that a national debt, if it is not excessive, will be to us a national blessing. But now that we've seen why the founding fathers thought that faction should be tolerated and why a union was stronger than a collection of states, the question still remains: is democracy even a good system? Do we really want the type of government that requires years of meetings and compromises to turn a pit into a community park? So here we go with problem 3. Does democracy actually work? We all know that America is a democracy, and democracy
would work if we had a fucking democracy.
About we the people. So obviously our friend,
I think that democracy is nearly as idealistic as utopian communism. Like the way that we theorize on democracy is as theoretical or as utopian as a stateless, borderless, classless, moneyless society that has never existed. And same with like democracy, yeah. The democratic process. Now, having said that, there's two different kinds of democracy. There is the pure democracy, and then there is the representative republic, which would still be considered a democratic republic and therefore still democratic. It's not that people are too dumb for democracy to work. It's that people are kept dumb as a direct consequence of our current way of organizing society, whether it be our economic organization, our economic structure, or even our political structure.
Friends Hamilton, Madison, and Jay got sweet democracy neck tattoos. And for everyone mad that, well, actually, America is a democratic republic, zip your burger hole for a second, we're getting there. The founders were pretty skeptical about the whole we the people part of the government, and were downright opposed to a world in which each citizen had a direct say in what's going on. John Adams, in a defense of the Constitution of the United States, flat out worried that unbridled democracy would lead the masses to give up their power immediately to some king or idols of their own creation. He also worried, like Madison, that the poors would start using their power to rob the rich blind, and to be fair, that the rich, when left to their own devices, would simply rob the poor blind. It's worth noting that Adams admired
really good that we made sure that the poors are not robbing the rich and robbing the rich. Second part of that, let's not talk about that. That's just how it works. They deserve it. If you're wealthy, you deserve to steal from me. What do you mean? I accrued this wealth on my own. Meritocracy is real. What are you, a communist? Get the fuck out of here. I've deserved to steal from the poor, whether it be their own toiling of the land, the profits, the tiny profits that I exploit from them directly, or whether it be subsidies that I get, that they themselves fund. Why, yes, this is why America's the greatest nation on earth, and not simply a developing nation with a Gucci belt on, as some of these socialist lip-tart cocks like to say.
Admired the British form of government, with its balance of powers and representative nature. Parks and Rec, despite being oh so optimistic about the power of one woman to change the world, really dives into the show that is democracy. Their city councilors serving for way too long with their own dumb ingrained ways and clear conflicts of interest, along with
wealthy people deserve to be stolen from. If that theft is Robin Hood style, taking back what is yours, or at least taking back a percentage of what is literally yours, then yeah, I don't think that's theft. I think that's just redistribution.
Hi, nice.
With the bonkers ideas held by some of Pawnee's citizens.
But isn't all food bad for you? I've been eating lasagna and muffins every day of my life for 40 years, and I feel terrible.
It was because of all this messiness that the founders preferred to call their invention a democratic republic instead of a literal democracy. For the authors of the Federalist Papers, commercial republics like ours will never be disposed to waste themselves in ruinous contentions with each other. They will be governed by mutual interest and will cultivate a spirit of mutual amity and concord. A republic, in the eyes of the founding fathers, is a system of government which is indirectly controlled by the people, with many barriers.
Why would anyone start a business if their shit gets redistributed? True. After all, if you look at Nordic countries where there's greater wealth redistribution, there is not a single business. As a matter of fact, when you think about Norway, Finland, Sweden, any number of European nations that are obviously desolate hellholes, not a single business has ever been started. 100% of the businesses in this planet start in America. Everybody knows this. Why would anybody start a business in Europe? That's a socialist hellhole.
Between individual citizens and direct decision-making at the government level. In other words, you need a Principal Leslie Knope or Ann Perkins to act on behalf of this guy.
I'm not worried about swine flu. I already have the swine flu. I'm worried about the turtle flu.
And rather than hoping for some shared patriotic interest, Hamilton, for one, thought that it was commerce, not democratic ideals, that would be the true unifying force of the Union. To put it bluntly, they figured that people would get over their fights and squabbles if it would keep their bank balance looking pretty. This, in turn, would keep them faithful to the nation, keeping their accounts in the black. While we've more than covered the town halls, we can consider this quote from the Federalist Papers. Are not popular assemblies frequently subject to the impulses of rage, resentment, jealousy, avarice, and of other irregular and violent propensities? Is it not well known that their determinations are often governed by a few individuals in whom they place confidence and are, of course, liable to be tinctured by the passions and views of those individuals? In other words, there's a few jerks who are going to push public sentiment in a pretty bad direction. While the media during their time amounted to rumors spread at the tavern and printed pamphlets, we can see the danger of misguided masses with Pawnee's own gin-soaked Katie Couric, Joan Calamezzo. Calamezzo's talk show, Pawnee Today, has the clout to make or break local political.
This was yet another incredibly real fucking element on the show, which is that, of course, local news broadcasters are reactionary hellholes for the most part that absolutely do propaganda on behalf of the capitalist organization of the economy for capital owners, pro-cop across the board, and engage in all of the worst kinds of social stereotyping that still socially conditions Americans, especially boomers who watch local TV, into being racist shitlords.
Careers. And they can do this all through using a...
You're a multimillionaire too. If you keep streaming for some more years, by your logic, we're allowed to take back our wealth when you have 10 million. Sure, dude. Yeah. When I make more money than absolutely. As a matter of fact, 100%. What a fucking idiotic take. What, you think I'm against, you think I'm against, like, taxing the fuck out of myself so that we can fund government programs? What a stupid, silly, dumb fucking take. The problem is, what most of you fail to recognize is, like, you always say shit like, Hasan, if you're a fucking communist, why don't you give back all of your wealth? Like, why don't you give back 100% of your wealth? First of all, you're completely avoiding how labor works. You're completely avoiding, like, the labor theory of value, which is a fundamental part of Marxist theory. Like, that's not how that works. Like, Marxism or any number of different political theories or ideologies or different ways of organizing the economy that strung off as a consequence of Marxism or Marxist thought does not mean that there is no rich people ever, okay? That we will have full equality. Like, full equality across the board. Like, it's just silly as fuck. Now, that's one. Okay? Technically, for example, multi-millionaire Hollywood celebrities are still fucking workers. Sorry, sucks to suck, but that's the fucking truth. Same with even multi-millionaire fucking truckers. In the state of California, truckers have a pretty solid union, if I'm not mistaken, and they make a fuckload of money. They make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Are they still workers? Of course they are. Of course they are. They benefit from unionization. They benefit from having strong labor unions. Okay? That's a big part of it. Because when you have a union, you can advocate for a larger share of the profits distributed back to you for your labor, because workers add value. There is no value without labor. Without labor, you just have a bunch of capital sitting around in an empty factory getting devalued year over year. So that's one. Two, me giving 100% of my wealth back is nowhere near as significant as being able to potentially push for taxation at the level of government, to push for social safety nets. Are you fucking dumb? There is a level of wealth that you do generate, though, where a singular person can legitimately lead to changing the fucking planet or changing the way that our government works. But that level of wealth is nowhere near. That's not even in the hundreds of millions. We're talking billion plus. We're talking 500 million plus. Those people can single-handedly, the real rich people, can single-handedly change the course of history, and they do oftentimes to benefit their interests, and make it so difficult for even people like myself to be able to advocate for social safety nets and more taxation for the wealthy and corporations. If you give back all your wealth, that's just charity. And who are you to decide how to allocate your resources? Wait, what? What's the motivation of working hard anymore if marginal tax rate is applied after a certain limit? First of all, either you simply do not understand how the marginal tax rate works, or you don't understand how human beings work. I don't know which one it is, okay? It's probably the first, though, and it may be a little bit of the second. What, do you think that a marginal tax rate means that you just get taxed at 100% off of like every dollar that you make after a certain point? Is that what you think? Because that's not how that works. You still make more money than other people, even when there is a marginal tax rate at the top.
You don't love the spirit of justice. You love your
Talking out of your ass,
devil.
Hasan, you just butchered Marxian economics. It emerges from the organic composition of capital that market contradictions arise, surplus value. Just keep reacting, man. I did not butcher the labor theory of value. What you are talking about, I don't even want to engage in this, dude. This is so fucking stupid. I just, theory nerds annoy me almost as much as fucking dumbass neoliberals do. Marxism is scientific thought, dude. I'm sorry. I'm a scientific Marxist. It's actually scientific thoughts. Yeah, you're right, dude. You're right. You're right. Marxist theory is just as much as a science as any like neoclassical economist believes that their theories are science. Okay? What do you think about people making tons of money without even contributing to society, like stock traders? Oh, I don't like it. I never mentioned taxes, nor did you before. You misinterpreted my question and take your own words the wrong way. You were talking about literally taking it from the riches. I have no doubt you'll pay your taxes. Well, that's what I mean when I say taking it literally from the riches. I don't mean that when someone is a fucking billionaire, you can go up to their house with a gun and like take whatever the fuck you want, idiot. I mean redistributive policies, at least in the short term, before we get to long-term, more comprehensive solutions.
Emotions like rage and jealousy to rouse TV-addicted citizens in the service of the absolute worst ideas.
Yeah, how can you justify raising taxes for something that will hurt the town?
But this of course leaves us with the question of whether the founders were correct in thinking that we weren't capable of handling an actual direct democracy and instead needed the barriers of a republic to keep us from ruining things. After all, we've got plenty of
Are you mad you're not able to understand and explain Marxism to other people? Learning theory is necessary to be able to actually convey it. When you don't read theory, you end up pulling shit out of your ass like you're doing right now and putting confusing as fuck ideas about Marxism into people's heads as a self-proclaimed socialist or Marxist. Okay. Let's pause for a second. The reason why I get frustrated about fucking theory nerds is precisely why you're personally explaining the reason why I get frustrated about theory nerds. Because theory nerds always immediately arrive at the conclusion they've arrived at because they feel like they've read more than you, they assume that they've read more than you, and then have this insanely elitist up their own ass attitude about those who genuinely, I think, in my mind, do a decent job at describing it to hundreds of thousands of people. Okay? That's why I get frustrated. Because your immediate reaction is you haven't read when you have no idea and you're wrong. Like, what the fuck have I pulled out of my ass? Explain exactly what the fuck I've pulled out of my ass before saying you've just pulled shit out of your ass, okay? And then maybe we can have a conversation about that. Beyond that, by the way, you guys are completely oblivious to how fucking human beings work in general. And make it virtually impossible to spread theory to begin with. I nowhere have I claimed. Yeah, see, this is what I mean. Picking a fight. Like 1.5 year fucking sub, dude. Look at this dumb fuck. Look at this dumb fucking asshole. Are you mad? Mad because wrong, you butchered LTV? Yes, you did butcher LTV. Are you mad you're not able to understand and explain Marxism to other people? Are you mad you're not able to understand and explain Marxism to other people? Nowhere did I claim I have more knowledge of theory, Keck W. You are a fucking coward. Capital is dead labor. You don't have capital without labor. Is that not what I just said? You repeated exactly what I said. Without labor, there is no value added to capital. It just sits and deteriorates as an empty fucking factory. Or just, you know, logs inside of an empty factory if you were able to even acquire that. That is precisely what I said. And you turned around, repeated that exact same thing that I said, and then turned, which isn't even like the labor theory of value. You're being confusing. Capital, by definition, is dead labor. You can't acquire capital in the first place without exploiting labor, and also taxes are an extraction of surplus value too. $19-month sub. 19-month fucking sub. Oh, I know there is no factory without labor, you fucking asshole. I'm trying to help people fucking understand. Okay? It's just money. You just have cash. But the cash that you accrued either, like, why do you want me to always go back to like enclosures and fucking how intergenerational wealth starts? We don't have to go into primitive accumulation to be able to describe something as simple as like the way to generate more capital or the way to generate capital in general is with labor. You're a fucking idiot. It's a 1-second explanation when I'm watching a fucking Parks and Recs video. Every single time I describe how capital accumulates or how fucking the labor theory of value works, I have to do a Marxism 101 lecture for 45 minutes. This is why you guys are horrifically unlikable and literally push people away from actually reading. Yeah, being a socialist is hard. Yeah, it's hard because of fucking morons like you, okay? Fuck off. Yeah, being a socialist is hard. No need to get this heated and angry. You know why I get this fucking heated and angry? You 19-month sub dipshit? Because of fucking morons like you. Because of morons like you, you make it insanely unmarketable, okay? You have this weird moral high horse where you legitimately think that just because you have decided that you're on the fucking right side of history, that you could just run your fucking mouth without trying to market this mentality, trying to market these theories to people. No need for agitative propaganda when I'm on the right side. Just read more theory, you fucking idiot.
You have attacked me and
You just
lied.
don't understand it. God, you are like literally turning me into... I've heard you explain this 500 times as almost a 2-year sub. I don't understand how this person isn't aware of your understanding of LTV. I just, like, his name is picking a fight.
You don't love
Ruining
the spirit
fun
of
time.
justice. You love your father, the devil.
It's a real great idea to gatekeep a populist ideology with theory reading. That's gonna work out real well.
Oh. I'm not even saying that you shouldn't read. You absolutely should. I wouldn't know nearly the things I know without reading. Why do you get so mad at chuds? You're like, it's sad. This guy's not a chud. I get more mad at fucking leftists. I get more fucking mad at leftists who do a disservice to the left by being this way. Okay? Because we're on the same fucking side. And you're making it harder for me. Chuds are easy because they're not on my side. I could just easily fucking turn around and own them. Without any sort of like consequences about the left. But when you are being annoying as fuck, LTV is a labor theory of value. I'm not going to permanently ban him. I'm just fucking mad. All right, let's finish this stupid fucking video.
Problems caused by special interest groups and career politicians. It's not that Parks and Rec is a perfect one-to-one stand-in for the arguments of Federalists versus Anti-Federalists, but it can serve as a pretty good lesson in what these people were thinking. But what do you think, Wisecrack? Does Parks and Rec show us the best that American democracy is capable of when well-intentioned folks work together? Or does it instead lay bare the problems and limitations inherent to a system of government developed over 200 years before it was possible to slide into those DMs? Let us know what you think in the comments. Huge thanks to our amazing patrons for supporting the channel and our podcast. And before you go, I'm going to give one last shout out to Vincero for sponsoring.
If it was a non-sub, he'd be banned. That's not true. I fucking unban most people that aren't chuds. Like, you're silly as fuck for saying that. The people that I permanently ban are like random shitters who come in and are like, blacks are violent and therefore need to be policed, you fucking libtard cuck. Unironically. Sorry that I don't want that kind of shit. I don't want that kind of fucking idiotic mentality fostering in my community.